This is the main and pretty much the deciding factor of what you want to do. So token systems, in abstract terms, it basically means this kind of currency that defines the progression of your collection. So usually it can be shown as you see here, as hero characters or other collectible entity. It doesn't need to be hero characters, can be like, as you see in Golf Clash, could be just golf clubs or something like that. But again, this is something that's the main, pretty much defines your collection system. As said, they are acquired through random drop rewards from different drop pools of various rarity levels, having usually different drop rates, legendary gacha, this gacha, exclusive gacha, so on and so forth. And the important part is, of course, how long can we roll the gacha until we have them all, the depth of the gacha. This has, of course, for free-to-play critical implications because we're not premium. We want the game to last pretty much forever because this is game as service model. So best case scenario, you can roll the gacha forever, which implies that we still need to add more and more character into the pool. Otherwise, the game,
It's 4 a.m. and we're rolling the dice. Matei drops knowledge made of golden eyes. Felix with ads making those coins rise. Jakub designs worlds chasing the sky. We're the 2.5 gamers, the midnight crew. Talking UA adverts and game design too. Matei, Felix, Jakub bringing the insight. We're rocking those vibes till the early daylight. Matei, UA, master eyes on the prize. Tracking data through the cyberspace skies. Felix stacks dollars like a wizard in disguise. Jakub's crafted realms lift us to the highs. 2.5 gamers talking smack. Slow hockey stick, got your back. Ads are beautiful, they light the way. Click it fast, don't delay.
Hello, dear listeners. This is Jakub again in one of those solo sessions on 2.5 Gamers podcast. Yeah, so there's been a lot of requests for this, and I think you can get a little bit confused when I'm talking about gacha systems and stuff around their tokens and duplicate systems, all these other things. So I decided to put my older talk, the one that did the GDC, back again and update it a little bit and walk you through it in a way, basically, so you are a little bit more up to date with the terminology and this whole kind of categorization of gacha systems, how they work, how they can break very easily, and which are the most common ones and how to know them. So I guess, yeah, this is pretty much it. What we are gonna talk about today. So let me share the screen and we can go. So gacha, this is the first question. What is gacha? What is loot box? It's basically the same thing. It's just that gacha originates from Japan, and the word gachapon, as you see there, is this kind of machine, which is still pretty much on every corner street in Japan, where it's a random reward machine, basically. So you throw in 100 yen and then you get a random reward out of it. That's usually pretty much the gist of it, how it works still in Japan. It's a vending machine that dispenses these capsule toys that are called gacha. And again, because Japan had mobile phones much sooner than the rest of the world, this was like one of the main inspiration behind the gacha systems that were done there in their games. In the West, as said, we know this word as loot box, and it's much more associated with a chest-like item or container rather than this vending machine. But it's basically the same. It's just a different name for the same random reward mechanic, as you have seen. And again, this has been very, very dominant progression system across not only mobile games but also AAA games. Like, we've seen numerous iterations everywhere. Also, the Star Wars 2 Battlefront fiasco with Darth Vader being locked behind loot boxes and stuff like that. So yeah, that's just the gist of it. Moving on, as we'll go through the different gacha system, first let's talk a little bit about the parts of the gacha, like how this system as an engine actually works and what are the main things to focus on or main parts that you don't want to screw up, basically. So first thing is token system.
Hello everybody. I didn't see you there. This episode is brought to you by Vibe.co, the easiest way how to grow your brand with CTV ads. With Vibe, you can launch high-impact campaigns across top streaming platforms like Hulu, Roku, and others, all from one simple dashboard. So it's built for brands, all sizes, no expensive agency, no complicated setup, just real fast results. Join over 5,000 marketing teams already scaling with streaming TV. Visit vibe.co and get started. That's vibe.co. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to the episode.
This is the main and pretty much the deciding factor of what you want to do. So token systems, in abstract terms, it basically means this kind of currency that defines the progression of your collection. So usually it can be shown as you see here, as hero characters or other collectible entity. Doesn't need to be hero characters, can be like, as you see in Golf Clash, could be just golf clubs or something like that. But again, this is something that's the main, pretty much defines your collection system. As said, they are acquired through random drop rewards from different drop pools of various rarity levels, having usually different drop rates, legendary gacha, this gacha, exclusive gacha, so on and so forth. And the important part is, of course, how long can we roll the gacha until we have them all, the depth of the gacha. This has, of course, for free-to-play critical implications because we're not premium. We want the game to last pretty much forever because this is game as service model. So best case scenario, you can roll the gacha forever, which implies that we still need to add more and more character into the pool. Otherwise, the game, if we reach the end of it and we have the full collection, like we leave. That's the churn point, so we never want to reach that. In order to do this, you need to be able to adjust your gameplay also, because it's not that easy. Like for instance, Monster Strike here, I think this is this image. These guys already are past 3,000 characters, so you really need to know what you're doing in order for the system to be able to even absorb these things. The other system, which is the one that's mainly being given the role of absorption, is the duplicate system. So that handles the problem of you getting the same character and what to do with it. So there are many ways how these duplicate systems works. Again, depending on the type of gacha, but yeah, it's pretty much a sink for excess or duplicate tokens that you're getting from the gacha system, because again, we need to roll it forever, and we of course need to get duplicates in the process. Usually, it's operated by soft currency, which is the kind of burning currency that you use. For instance, here you see that if you want to upgrade this character, it costs some kind of soft currency, or cards in Clash Royale, if you upgrading them with their shards, it costs gold, of course. So there's this kind of system that gates the upgrade mechanic of these things. For instance, Clash Royale economy is based on gold scarcity. So usually you have much more cards to upgrade than gold that you have for the upgrades, which is again one of just the design paradigms there. And the important part is again that duplicates needs to be meaningful, which means that getting a duplicate needs to still move you towards your progression. So let's say if I obtain a legendary token that I already got and there is no real use for it, I'll feel very bad because I could have gotten the other legendary, but I use my legendary luck for this token that I have no use, which is a problem. So common solution will be to incentivize having duplicates, such as evolving my character by giving him more powers if he consumes his own duplicate, or increasing his skill points, or limit breaking him. A lot of these games currently have some kind of system set up in a way that actually incentivize you to get multiples of legendary or whatever characters. So once you get the first one, that's great, but then you need, I don't know, 5 more copies or 6 more copies, like in Honkai Star Rail, Genshin Impact, to fully unlock all of his powers, which are really, really strong if you literally have 6 duplicates absorbed into that one. Yeah, as I said, the best system is the one where every drop is valuable, no matter if it's duplicate or not, or if it's a different token, doesn't matter. Deck size. This is another important subsystem of gacha. It represents the number of tokens player can take into the core gameplay at one time. This is again super important games can die based on wrong numbers that they would input here. So this gives us the much needed strategic element because we can only take limited amount of tokens into the battle, which creates the whole deck building, strategic depth, tactical gameplay stuff. Sometimes this is not really that visible, as for instance, some hero tokens are also carrying a layer of equipment, which is basically another set of tokens. So for instance, here we have, where we are, we have 2 fleets of 6 ships, so altogether 12 ships from Azur lane. But each of these ships also have their own equipment, I think 6 items on top of it. So it's a lot of items and a lot of gacha rolls to kind of get them up and running, pretty much execute properly their whole combo or strategy that you're doing. In other systems, again, the characters, like Archer, for instance, characters are not the token system, or let's say now they are because Archer had a lot of updates in the meantime. But for instance, the inventory and the equipment is just the token system and the deck size. For instance, here in original Archer build when they launched, there were just 6 inventory items. But again, compare it to nowadays, and you'll see what happens. More on that later. The important part is that if deck size is too small, the game will suffer from not being able to properly differentiate challenges, and strategic decisions will become less impactful. So this basically means that if I will have just 1 strong character, 2 strong characters, and my deck size will be 2, these can probably handle most of the challenges in the game. Therefore, I don't have the need to roll more characters to upgrade and to have them. So the wider we get this, the better. And games usually lock out also your teams, which means that they require you to bring 2 or 3 teams of different characters, again, pushing you to upgrade more and more and more of these characters. That's very important. You need to be incentivized to upgrade all of your characters, actually, because, again, water challenge requiring electrical guys and fire challenge requiring water guys, again, just one of those systems that gives you clear meaning of like what team to build. Collection driver, and this is the overlap that I'm going to jump in from the previous subpoint. This, I think, is the most crucial and kind of hidden part of gachas that people really omit, because token system, duplicate system, deck size you can copy from any other game. It's like quite easy, and you see it clearly how it works. But collection driver, these drivers aren't that easy to copy and aren't that clear how they are actually incentivizing you and how the game gates progression based on these systems. So for instance, Golf Clash uses pretty much the terrain system of these golf courses that dictates which golf clubs are best suited for each of these different tours or tracks or whatever. In Monster Strike, again, you can see that it's pretty much driven by elemental system. So we have dark element, fire element, leaf element, or whatever. Very bread and butter system. AFK Arena, for instance, they have their own elements. This is 3+2. The Asian style Monster Strike, they have 4. So again, depends, but there really need to be some kind of a system that is doing this pretty much collection driver setup, where it creates challenges for you, and these challenges needs to be overcome by different set of characters. This is the thing that kind of drives your collection. It could be an ever-changing meta game in a PvP meta, and that's, for instance, how Clash Royale works. Each arena, they add more and more tokens into the gacha that shifts the meta, and you need to adjust to it. So your build from Arena 6 won't really work in Arena 7 or 8. Therefore, you need to change it because, again, new tokens that counters your previous tokens or different strategies, and blah, blah, blah. There we go. This is all part of core gameplay. And when you're designing gacha system and when you having gacha system setups, it needs to be compatible to the core gameplay. So core gameplay needs to have enough depth and vectors so you can connect these parameters from it into your tokens, and then it will make all sense. So example, Monster Strike, for instance, a lot of characters have these specific abilities or properties like, I don't know, immune to laser ball. Because it's a pinball game and the pinball tokens, you throw them all over the place in this kind of rectangular board fashion. they hit the wall a lot of times. And one of the mechanics in the dungeons is a laser wall. So if you don't have the laser wall immunity set up, you will die in laser wall dungeon. Very simple. So in order to beat that dungeon, you need to bring units that are immune to laser wall. And there we go, because it's the part of core gameplay. Yeah, the same applies as from the previous setup. If there are characters that are not balanced properly and they're just too strong or too overpowered regarding that they don't really feel the challenge to change them in different types of content, then yeah, the gacha pretty much breaks, because why would I need other characters if these 2, 3 or whatever characters can solve all my problems? Okay, so now that we know all these things, let's look at like 3 of the different gachas that are most prevalent on the current market. Solid token gacha. So, or as I like to say, hard gacha is the type of gacha where the main layer of tokens consists of very big collection, where the best tokens are really hard to get. And this is the big differentiating factor, because this is coming mainly from Asia, and usually Asian games have hard token gachas or solid token gachas. By solid token, imagining that you cannot divide these tokens into fragments. They are gained in these binary scenarios, all or nothing. So it either drops from the gacha or doesn't drop from the gacha. It again depends on your luck and on the depth of your wallet that you're willing to throw at the gacha. But basically, you have, if you're a free to play player, or if you don't really throw money, you are very, very lucky if you can get even like one of these 5-star or like top rarity characters. Just to give you an example, when I was playing Empires and Puzzles for 1 year, I never got a 5-star character from the gacha during that whole 1 year. I didn't pay anything there, but I still was playing the game pretty frequently every single day. So yeah, that tells you like how hard it is. One thing and a cheat code basically to recognize this gacha is that there's usually stars or some kind of different visual, like for instance here you have these charms or whatever Asian symbols that are under the characters that determine their strength. So let's say 4-star characters are worse than 5-star characters. 5-star characters is usually the common of knowledge of like these are the best ones, but of course you can upgrade them, like you see here where you end up with, I don't know, 20 stars, superstars, or I don't know, something. But the baseline is like, it's about the starting point. That's the important part, because a lot of these characters are defined by the starting point of, for instance, 4-star guy starts from lower stats than the 5-star guy, and then that means that 4-star guy ends up evolving sooner than the 5-star guy, whereas 5-star guy continues evolving and becomes much more stronger than the 4-star guy. Quite simple. So what are the big games that are using this system? So of course we have the behemoths of the industry, which is Puzzle and Dragons and Monster Strike. Monster Strike recently just passed 8 billion in overall lifetime revenue. Amazing game. Unfortunately, they shut down the international server in 2017. But yeah, this is like one of the best games to study actually regarding gacha system, because this is the gacha system, the biggest one of all time. Yeah, so we have Puzzle and Dragons. That was the first game that crossed 1 billion revenue on mobile, followed by Monster Strike. That was the second one. Then you have, again, you see a lot of Asian staples here, such as Faint Grand Order, Dragon Ball Z, Onmyoji, Summoner's War, and then of course we can't omit our kind of latest entrance into this setup, which is the whole Hoyoverse portfolio of Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and Zenless Zone Zero, which are all running on hard solid gacha. On Western front, we don't have that many games that are successful, or there aren't even that many games to begin with. So the most successful one I would say would be Empires and Puzzles, which is direct iteration of Puzzle and Dragons. Then we have Marvel Contest of Champions, and then Raid Shadow Legends, and Legendary Game of Heroes, which is again one of the other follow-ups of Puzzle and Dragons, but they didn't scale to the heights that actually guys from Small Giant Empires and Puzzles did. They were actually acquired by Zynga later down the line. Last one, I think, into this kind of bigger field is Raid Shadow Legend, which was launched at the beginning of 2019. But again, there's new games coming all over the place. It's just that it's much harder to kind of establish a foothold now in the current market based on the UA situation. But yeah, if you want to study or see the solid token gacha system in its current kind of best form, I would definitely recommend Hoyover's portfolio of Genshin Impact, Hawkeye Star, and Xena Zone Zero. These guys definitely know what they're doing, even though they are facing pretty big diminishing returns on their portfolio because they are essentially making games for the same audience with very little modifications. But yeah, we'll see. So how this system actually works. So we usually have very large collections, like literally hundreds. You need something like, in some cases, like 200 characters or like 300 characters to even launch the game. There needs to be different rotating drop pools that can be time exclusive, and there are usually time exclusive, which means that, let's say, and again, to give you an example, Genshin Impact have like 3-week cycles. So every 3 weeks there's a new character or like new gacha system. Doesn't necessarily a new gacha banner. Doesn't necessarily need to be a new character. Sometimes they just re-roll or recycle the previous ones for like a limited period of time. But most of the time they can add a new character to them, and not one but multiple. So that tells you like how much content they like dish out. Genshin Impact is like, I don't know, 200 million just for the maintenance, $10 million just for the maintenance of all that like giant content treadmill that these guys are pushing out. Again, really hard to get the best tokens and hard to upgrade them fully because, as I said, with one legendary, it just starts and you need all its other progression layers. You need this inventory, you need this skill points, you need this and that and whatever. So it's great that you finally have it. It probably costs a lot of money or a lot of gacha rolls, but still you can get more out of it. But again, once you have it, you're kind of safe, let's say. The duplicate system, sometimes you can get literally nothing. It's very, very cutthroat in a way that lots of times these things just don't get you anything. Tokens can eat up all other tokens, increasing their stats. This is usually the case where you recycle other characters into your main characters, pretty much consuming them through a fusion system or even a recipe system like Summoner's War or Raid Shadow Legends. They have a recipe system literally. So if you build it up and consume it like a recipe, you actually get like a legendary character or good character. So that can also happen. And yeah, duplicates having special bonus or unlockable effect, the one that we talk about, that like limit breaking something, giving more skills or other things there. Deck size, usually it's around 5 tokens with multiple layers and multiple decks. Could be 4, could be 6, could be more, but like this is pretty much the usual setup. In order to properly play the game, the player has to build multiple compositions of his deck to be able to overcome all of game's challenges. This is our usual water deck, fire deck, electric deck, something, pick your element or pick your like driving mechanic from the game, and you need to build different teams. That this is big focus. There is mainly the PvE progression and many side progressions that often represent the end game content of the game. Social element is heavily utilized in this stage, such as social helper mechanic, where you can select your best token to be borrowed by your friends. This is usually the thing that these things have. Therefore, they push you to have the best friends in your friend list. You kick the inactive ones and always keep the best ones, because sometimes in like games like AFK Arena, you literally need just great friends in order to pass levels, because you literally use once a day, you use their best character, which could be just, I don't know, 2 months more upgraded than yours, which actually helps you to solve levels, and then there's no other way to do it without those friends. This really pays off, this social helper mechanic. Said it's mainly PvE driven. PvP is more of an afterthought, or again, not really a focus of these games. It's there. There are special characters just designed for PvP, of course, because they also want to cater to this kind of audience, but it's not the priority for these games. It's kind of a nice thing to have somewhere there on the sideline. Main thing is, of course, always the bosses, the clans, the PvE raids and stuff like that. That's the main content of these games where their solid token gachas are in place. Advantages. So we have great longevity, where, as you see, like Monster Strike is still doing like nearly $1 billion a year. System scales very well, and it's super deep because, again, we have all of these challenges, all of these characters that have multiple progression layers on top of them. So yeah, it's still very, very deep and very, very robust, pretty much. And again, it has super monetization capability. Usually how you immediately recognize these games when looking at their revenue charts is they're very spiky, and they all come in spikes. Most of the spend is done during the initial release of the exclusive gacha, or like the new characters through these banners. People buy it, and then once they have it, they can play it a little bit and then wait until another one hits the rotation, and then they buy it. So it's not the usual constant flow of something like, I don't know, Clash Royale or these like Golf Clash, all these other games where it's like a constant line of, I don't know, 2 million, 3 million a day. This is more of a like very, very big spike. So like Monster Strike was, I don't know, 12, 15 million. Yeah, pretty much very, very big spike, but then again drops down very heavily, and then just goes. Same also goes for Genshin Impact. You can literally see that every 3 weeks there's a big spike in the revenue chart. This is how it is. Which brings us to disadvantages, because it's very heavy content driven, and there's a lot of content that you need to add into the game after the global launch. So yeah, it demands a really big team and big capacity from your live ops production to kind of keep running, because this is just how these games work. As said, it's not only afterwards, but even before, like from the start, because again, people go like crazy, and it's because it's PvE content, they eat it out like there's no tomorrow. So you still need to have a sizable chunk of content for people to go somewhere. Like I would always recommend something like 3 months worth of content for you to launch the game, and then during those 3 months until people reach the end of it, you hopefully give them more, put the carrot on the stick somewhere further down the line so they can still chase it and kind of move after it. Gacha pools can feel luck-based and unrewarding. This is like one of the biggest disadvantages for Asian games in the Western market, where people in the West, they're not really used to these gacha-based mechanics of binary situations of, you know, we either have it or you don't have it. Like that. That's also where all the pity timers are coming from, where all these mitigations of these mechanics are coming from, and that's also where this whole different gacha system was born, because that was the main purpose and main innovation that they did there, that they remove this very luck-based feeling, which again people in the West aren't really that comfortable with. Yeah, so let's talk about it. Shard token gacha. So this is called either shard token gacha or fragment gacha engine, or however you pretty much want to call it. It's something that can be split into parts. As the name implies, tokens are divided into shards which are needed for the upgrade. It's pretty easy to obtain most of the tokens eventually. The hard part comes with the upgrade. Every drop is rewarding, and all shards count towards the token upgrades. Gacha pools are very generous and always gives the feeling of progress. The cheat sheet, again, the visual hint is that under each of our characters, there's this kind of a loading bar which is being fulfilled as you collect the tokens. That's the immediate thing that you can spot shard token gacha in a game where, yeah, usually it's a derivative of Clash Royale. That's most of the times that I've seen. But again, Supercell uses it in a lot of their games. Idlers started using it. There's other games that are clever that didn't chase after Clash Royale, like Golf Clash. They're using it. Many games are using it because this system is working very, very well in the West. It's very scalable. So the top games that are being used here is, of course, nearly all the Supercell games: Clash Royale, Brawl Stars, Golf Clash. Schwartz was using it when it was launched. Random Dice was using it, and now Rush Royale is using it. The My Games can follow up on that game. Then we have Trailer Park Boys, which was the first idler that implemented this progression in. Adventure economies we changed with it. Idle Miner Tycoon later implemented it. Hero Wars has it. Gold and Goblins has it, which is currently the best idler in the market, in my opinion. Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes has it, or Marvel Strike Force. So, yep, there's lots of games that are having this. It's, I would say, not that obvious on the market that like, because in the West we don't have that much RPG tradition, so the revenues aren't that big because only so few games are there, whereas in Asia it's pretty much everywhere. But it's still a major chunk of revenue is coming from shard token gacha games, definitely. So how does this work? Tokens are given by increasing amounts of shards. These economies scale as it goes. So for instance, give you an example, in Clash Royale, in Arena 1, if you get skeletons or giants from a, don't remember which ones actually, or goblins which you get, I don't know, 5 shards per drop from a chest, like a common chest. If we go Arena 7 or whatever higher, and we get same situation that the common chest opens and we would have the goblins, we would instead get 20 or 30 or I don't know how many shards, because the system just scales. And this feels great because it's increasing numbers and suddenly you're showered with these tokens. Because as I said, you can give all of the tokens to the player, like you drip feed them legendary after legendary shard after legendary, because they still cannot upgrade the legendary, and yeah, it doesn't matter. Therefore, it's just much more constant and flexible. So instead of big spikes, you constantly give them a little bit of something that they eventually upgrade. And the time to upgrade is the important part. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But yeah, it's mitigating this whole giant luck-based randomness. So we have one expanding drop pool that is unlocked by player level. Again, that's the same thing as Clash Royale, whereas you start with, I don't know, 6 tokens, then the next arena you add 3 or 4 more tokens, next arena same, the other arena same, and suddenly at the last arena, like the Clash Royale is, I don't know what, like 120 tokens and starting. This is very good because it always increases the size of the pool, and by increasing the size of the pool, of course, we're lowering the chance of you getting the token that you want, making the gacha deeper and deeper, meaning it can absorb more and more money. So that's great. But also it has this very nice kind of onboarding side effect, whereas when we locked all of these tokens behind higher level arenas, you just get to play with a specific set that's designed for beginners, and then you add a little bit more, which again is a little bit more advanced, not the really advanced tokens. So it's great with pacing the content progression of gacha. This system works pretty well in that. Easy to obtain best tokens, but very hard to fill a grape. As I said, you can get legendaries pretty much every single day, just very small amounts. But then again, the upgrade numbers kicks in and you need to get, I don't know, 500, 600 tokens of these legendaries. So yeah, it'll take still a lot of time. Even though you're still getting them every day, it takes a lot of time to upgrade them eventually. Overall collection is much smaller than Solid Gacha. Yeah, this is the other big difference, that usually all of these tokens needs to be relevant both in end game and early game. So you don't build a collection of like monsters like 3,000 tokens. Like Clash Royale is what? Clash Royale is now 9 years old and it has what, like 130, 150 tokens, something like that. It can still go from that because their tokens needs to be working a little bit differently, and they don't have that much pressure on creating that much content. Like remember, not nowadays, but back in the day, Supercell was very very focused on these small cells, whereas the Clash Royale team was, I don't know, 10 people or something, some kind of very small size, and it was still able to operate this multi-billion-dollar game. So it's definitely much more easier, but that much harder to build in order to make this work. Duplicate system. Each duplicate counts and feels as frequent small steps of progress. As I said, this is just very, very rewarding. Tokens can only merge shards of its own duplicate. This is super important. You cannot really merge different shards like in previous stuff where we would just fuse all the unwanted characters, especially the low rarity ones, to kind of give XP to our main character. We can't do that. And this puts a very interesting mechanic here because it pretty much puts the whole gacha on rails. Because when you get and open these chests, it can be very easily projected as you're pretty much having a percentage chance to get like every single token from it. So by opening those, eventually you have the same pace on a longer term statistic where you pretty much get all the tokens on equal values with some randomness and noise on top of it. You can calculate very easily how many days it will take you on average to get all of these tokens, and pretty much all of them from all of the characters from one rarity. Yeah, it's just on rails. And what this does is that it pretty much creates a very cohesive experience for everyone and every single player, which is great because you can control it and script it and make sure that everybody's having a great time instead of like being on the one side of the Gauss curve having bad time. Each level of token require more and more shards of its own, ending with thousands. Yeah, as I said, the whole economy scales. So not only we get more and more rewards, more soft currency, more tokens drops from these chess systems, you also increase the requirements for these upgrades. And Clash Royale pretty much has exponential upgrade curves. So every next upgrade is like doubling the cost of previous upgrades. So you end up with years. Actually, it takes literally years to kind of upgrade these tokens. Deck size, original setup of Clash Royale was 8 without any additional layers. Idle games can use whole collection as a deck. This is literally a cheat code where idle games, what they did, they put the multipliers behind the idle part of the game behind these cards. So this is talking about adventure communities or golden goblins, where literally if you remember like how adventure capitalists work, like you have like these different Excel rows basically that are scaling themselves. So you, instead of putting a number like 2.2 or 2.3 on whatever times, you put a character there, you put him on the gacha progression, and you just increase the number of multiplier from that node, and it works perfectly. So yeah, for anyone making idler, definitely recommend going check that one out because you use all of these tokens all the time because again you reset the nodes and in every single level they are the same nodes, so it's perfect. It's really genius. But for normal games you usually have something like 6 to 8 tokens in the setup. Collection driver usually is competitive PvP metagame. This both same for Golf Clash, where in Golf Clash you have it's a PvP game because again you're competing in parallel with the player that you're going one-on-one again, even though there's zero interaction between you two. It's just that whoever kind of scores it's on less shots. But the PvP in their case is the PvE side of it, which means like how fast can you take on the terrain challenges. A clever single player content requiring different deck compositions. Yeah, that's pretty much what I said. Yeah, most of the times it's PvP driven because the PvP metagame it's adjusted to that expanding pool of tokens in different arenas, which changes these things. So it's mainly PvP driven. Advantages: very generous, frequent drops, adjusted literally and developed for Western audience. Whoever did that in Supercell was a genius. Luck is not a major factor considering the drops. So even though it can feel lucky, it's pretty much on rails and there's like an illusion of luck. Needs much less tokens to start and not heavy content driven. So sounds great, doesn't it? Like why would anyone choose the Asian gacha? So wait a second. Each token needs to be meaningful in the end game, which can get very problematic because you are instead of upgrading your rare fire tank character to legendary fire tank or whatever, like filling these roles in these different teams, you need to create decks and builds that can compete against each other, which is just much more harder. And your players also needs to understand these strategies and build those decks, which again creates a little bit of niche. And we are in a problematic situation that this is very hard to balance because imagine the moment that you add another token into the 130 token pool and it has basically synergies with all the other tokens and shifts the whole thing. and completely changes it and stuff. Yeah, just like it's a nightmare. Trust me. I've been there, seen that, not done that because I would, was able to do that, but it's just much harder. That was also one of the things why all of the games that were following Clash Royale failed on miserably. And if you've seen that in previous slides, Puzzle and Dragons was followed by Monster Strike pretty successfully. So yeah, it's not that easy to build this thing. Not able to monetize on collection aspect because we are not having really a collection as everybody has pretty much the same collection. There are no exclusive gachas, no exclusive time things, like you can really put whatever some kind of very important token from the deck, like giant on like 3-week timer banner gacha that like you can only get him during this time and then you can get him, I don't know, next year. This won't work in this model, so it's much harder to monetize these things because the exclusivity and all of this kind of very big luck based factor is now gone. So we also sacrifice that. Harder to build collection drivers which can destroy the whole system. Yeah, that's pretty much what I just said on previous slide. The PvP metagame needs to work very well, and you need to intuitively know and slowly script the unlocking of these tokens that will be, counters, different setups, so on and so forth. So it just takes much more skill to execute this whole setup. And then we have the merge token gacha. And this is like one of my favorite systems actually, because I would say this is an eclectic system that takes advantages of both systems without taking that much disadvantages. This was found. This already found success during later half of 2019 with games like AFK Arena and Archero. Overall collection is not that big compared to solid token gacha, but still bigger than shard gacha. Tokens here are usually merged with their duplicates, upgrading their rarity. Luck plays a much bigger role than in shard gacha, but this role is not that major as with solid token gacha. So we're literally taking the middle ground in both content creation and luck impact. The visual hint to recognize this gacha engine, the usual cheat sheet, is that you see a lot of tokens of the same type with different rarities in the inventory. So what that means is basically you see here we have these two green sites and they are on common rarity, but we also have the same site on uncommon rarity, which means that if we merge these two, or I think this is merge 3 now. Yeah, this is a merge 3 one. So if we would have one more common site, we will merge these 3 common sites to get another uncommon site. And so we would upgrade it and move on forward, blah, blah, blah. There are different things in the merging setup, so we talk about those. But yeah, I'm pretty positive that this works very well. And I think current setup is moving, especially for games that are designed more for the West, towards this kind of setup. This or the solid one. Shard one, you don't see that much shard gacha token games anymore in these like last years. So as said, this was spearheaded by AFK Arena and Archero. How it works. Tokens are merged in pack of 3 or 2 into each other, increasing their rarity. The higher the rarity, the higher the level cap unlock of the token. So pretty simple. Each duplicate counts and feels a small step of progress because again, it's a little bit similar to the shard token gacha. Tokens can only merge their own duplicate or, and this is the kicker, tokens can only merge duplicates from the same element or and their own duplicates. So I think I don't have an image here, but basically what this does is that you're upgrading tokens in AFK Arena, for instance. You only need to upgrade the I don't know, the lion guy token, Brutus one. So you need copies of Brutus, and then at some point you need to upgrade him again, and you don't need copies of Brutus. You just need copies from heroes based on the same rarity from the same element. So that means that the heroes that I'm actually not using that are kind of bad, I still upgrade them because I'm using them as fuel to upgrade my other main character, which again is coming from the solid token gacha system, the fusion system that's there. So this combines both, and I think it works very well. All the big games from Hobby portfolio are a testament to that this system works very well, especially on more casual players. Deck size around 5-6 tokens with multiple layers and multiple decks. Survivor IO launched with 6 items, then they added more 6-item test deck parts. Now they have, I don't know how many items, but yeah, something like 6 items I think is the sweet spot here. Collection driver, mainly PV progressions with multiple sideline progressions. Yeah, literally think Dark Forest in AFK Arena. There's like every single mold that you can imagine. PvP is usually an added bonus, not the focus. So again, an afterthought. Yeah, these games don't really have that much focus on PvP. And again, because we have this heavy PvE progression, we have support for social features such as clans, such as social helpers, and all these other things. So this one is, I think, very kind of the good middle ground that you should be using, and you should use, especially if you're doing, I don't know, hybrid casual games and all these other things, because they don't require that much capacity or skill to execute compared to the previous systems. Luck can be heavily moderated based on the design's decision, and you can literally push it one way or the other depending how much stingy you want to be during the requirement of you need just the same token or you can use the other token. Like this is the main kind of slider that you can move there. Duplicates feel rewarding and they can unlock chain merges. Yeah, one other thing is that this thing, which is in disadvantages, creates big pressure on inventory management because you're literally playing inventory Tetris, where a lot of these things are just cluttering your inventory, whereas you're just missing that one common token that would give you 3 immediate merge into uncommon, which would again merge the uncommons into rare, and so on and so forth. And like suddenly one token unlock like, I don't know, 7 to 8 merges. So yeah, this is like one of the maintenance systems that needs to be think about here. Yeah, it's just a side effect of this, that it's just problematic. Is middle road between shard and solid token code and demands. Yeah, we talk about that one. Can easily increase the pool of tokens. Again, the same, because it's a PV driven progression. We don't really need to think about the PvP meta game that much, so it's quite easy to add more tokens constantly into the creates big pressure. Yeah, that we talk about. Heavy feature set may seems too complex to approach. Yeah, so that means that some of the things that there are there can be very overwhelming if you unfold all the features of the game immediately. That's why these games like excel at unfolding very, very slowly, and you need to do it. So you start Survivor IO or Archero, there's just like one button in the whole menu after the first battle, which is like upgrade skill tree. And then it slowly unfolds battle after battle, feature after feature. Because in the end, there will be very heavy feature set. Like Survivor IO has literally like 2 main UI main menus, just with all the features that it unlocks, like all those side progressions, everything. Pacing is the key because it can get very overwhelming. So now we have some kind of accessibility range, accessible range. That's like how I want to kind of frame this, as this is more of a continuum. This is not again a binary situation. So we have solid token games which have tokens that are very, very hard to get. And then we have shard token games which have tokens that are very easy to get, and you pretty much are getting all of them anyway. And then we have the merge token games, such as again all the hobby portfolio, AFK Arena, or AFK Journey, where it's a middle ground, and it's a very, very good middle ground. Especially, it's working very well for hobby, but there's not that many companies that can pull this off that successfully. So in Asia, solid token model still rules, and if I would have to bet, I would guess most of the revenue is coming from solid token games. In the West, yeah, it's different, of course. These models are just much more accustomed to the Western audience regarding the shard token system. You could see that with Brawl Stars basically like striking to the moon. But yeah, my prediction here is that we will still see all of these systems being used, and the combinations of those, like some, for instance, Hero Wars, they have again a little bit of a merge token set up there where you need to first unlock the heroes from the shards, and then you have the so there can be a little bit of in between modifications, but my guess is that solid tokens will still rule the Asia because it has the best monetization setup and pretty much the most aggressive monetization, which Asian audience is used to, so this will still work. Shard tokens will again work very well in idlers or maybe some other genres that are able to adapt them into their progression. PvP style game like Clash Royale and Brawl Stars are very hard to do, and only few companies such as Supercell are able to pull this off. So I'm a little bit more skeptical towards seeing like big shard token games rising in the West in near future. What I expect fully is that we'll see more and more of heavy solid token games rising in the East and maybe even overlapping into the West a little bit. But yeah, that's there. And of course, guys from Hobby will continue their pipeline because their whole progression for roguelite RPG is always the same in this Merge Gacha token setup, which works great for them. They're not that big, but still, Capybara Go and Archer 2 are pretty good successes, so they'll continue there, and I think that's a good middle ground. Okay, that's it. Thank you for listening to this little bit of a refresh on how gacha systems work. If you have any comments or want to kind of ask questions or suggest another topic or any pretty much thing that kind of comes to your mind, feel free to let me know either in the comments or you can join our Slack where there's a lot of helpful people. It's nearing pretty much 3,000 people from game industries. Definitely a community that you want to be in. And yeah, see you next time.